Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is News and Week in Review, where we're going to talk about a few news pieces, the topic of the week, the games I played, and then, of course, the Week in Review. We're going to go through all of that, as usual, timestamps and links to everything down below. And starting off with news, no laptop this week, no tablet or whatnot, there's just a few news pieces, and none of them are very image-focused or image-centric or whatnot. But starting off with possibly both the biggest piece of news and possibly the one that will affect you the least, at least noticeably, which is Embracer Group. And Embracer Group is the company that bought Asmodee, and they basically announced a large amounts of layoffs coming. They said they're going to be focusing very heavily, and it's very vague. The whole article is very vague. I'll have links down below. But they effectively said, hey, we haven't met the expected whatever quarterly earnings or whatever it is, and so we're going to be doing some degree of layoffs, and we're going to be focusing on non-core aspects of things. So again, somewhat vague, but I imagine that means you'll continue to see T.A.L.K.E.R versus some random unknown game studio that you may never heard of that we're trying to do something new may close up shop. So there's layoffs coming in some way, and this does reflect the nature of the board game industry. This is something that if you're in if you're on the more industry side of things, a lot of people have known this is coming for a while. In general, there have been a lot of shortfalls across the board game industry. You may or may not have seen it, but crowdfunding in general is down. There's some degree of reduction in the crowdfunding totals on campaigns you might have thought would do $1 million, and they're doing 700,000. That kind of happens. There are a lot of evergreens in this space. Catan, Ticket to Ride, Seven Wonders, the evergreen games that have been around for so long that you can kind of use them as a benchmark for how the industry's doing, because you can never really tell how the industry's doing based on how The Witcher Old World sells in retail. It's a new game, who knows? But if you have sales data for something like Seven Wonders, which sold this much this year, this much this year, this much this year, evergreen titles are often a indicator of how the industry is doing, and so people who are seeing those numbers, companies like Asmodee or any number of stores for that matter, if you have access to that sales data and you're looking at that sales data, you can get a sense for the rise and decline of the industry and where things are at based on how evergreen titles do. There are other factors too, that's just one metric that gives a good indicator. And so the idea that shortfalls were coming has been present for a while, and it's a complicated economic system for a variety of reasons. But first of all is that shortfalls don't always represent things being down worse than they should be. Sometimes things went up too much and now it's just settling again. That's something that we saw across the course of the pandemic. The nature of the fact that over the course of the pandemic, board games definitely saw a spike in sales. It's one of those things where at first it's like, oh my gosh, board games are going to shut down. But in reality, to a large extent, board games actually did better during the course of the pandemic, just because of the fact that people needed something else to focus on. They weren't doing a large portion of activities were off the table, and so board games saw a definite spike. Even things like Pandemic, there were articles left, right, and center about how well Pandemic was doing, just because of the very nature of the association. You'd almost think it's worse, but it's more real. Now when you sit there and prevent that outbreak, it actually feels like a real concept to you. It's totally different. Either way, point is, board games went up during the pandemic, which means now there's a degree of settling, and the question is how much of that is settling from the degree of rise it saw, and how much of it is related to past years. And again, you can see that data and those patterns by looking at the past few years, the past decade. You can see those to an extent, but ultimately, something that's been coming for a while is the fact that the board game space is hitting a small degrees of layoffs, of concerns. It's nothing's drastic. Your board games aren't going away. The things you love, the hobby you love, is not going anywhere. But are there ebbs and flows to how popular things are, and as a result, the decisions companies have to make and what they plan for, versus what the reality is? Those things are 100% yes. One thing we definitely saw over the course of the pandemic is the fact that board games got more expensive. The fact that we suddenly saw, hey, all these extra costs that are in the place now that things are not so smooth, they definitely have to exist somewhere. And so that's why a copy of Ticket to Ride will run you $60, a $60 MSRP. That's not a cheap game. You can get it for cheaper than that, but the MSRP is $60 on that thing. Either way, Embracer Group is announcing some degree of layoffs or some degree of reduction around aspects of Asmodee. Unclear exactly how far that extends. That was going to be like a 2-sentence thing, but I ended up talking. From there, moving on to the next thingy, which is going to be speaking of hard times. Elf Creek Games is joining the list of companies who are unfortunately asking for more money. I say unfortunately, both with a degree of it's not, judgment's the wrong term. There's no judgment. There's no, at least not on my end. There's no judgment on my end. There is understanding of all sides of the concerns and the complaints. I'm going to, again, turn a 2-sentence thing into a longer thing. But Elf Creek Games, over on Elf Creek Games Monstrosities, they asked for more money for an expansion that is 2.5 years late. That context is relevant because I'll get people who say, but it's 2.5 years late. I know it's 2.5 years late. And the expansion's 2.5 years late, and they basically said, hey, some of these pledges, we're going to suck it up and pay the extra costs ourselves. We're just going to. The shortfall is like an extra $80,000, assuming you take the updated face value. It's like an extra $80,000 shipping costs. We're going to suck up some of that ourselves. but some of it we can't do that. Some of the various regions where we might have quoted 40 and it's now $100, we just can't suck up that difference, and so there's going to be some degree of ask if you want your pledge on a variety of sectors of the population. They also, to their credit, and there's a lot of things you can complain about, but to their credit, they definitely they posted that update in all of their campaigns saying, hey, here's this thing going on in this other game we have, just want to make sure you're fully aware, which is a good thing. And there are many things that people can complain. Again, both sides of the issues. People can ask things like, well, how long have you known this? Why haven't you told us until now? This expansion's 2.5 years late. The fact that you're asking for shipping costs now is only your fault. You made it sound like we were going to get it years ago. There are lots of reasonable questions and concerns on the side of backers as to why wasn't this done or orchestrated or arranged, meaning even if I as a backer am prepared to acknowledge that some things are outside your control as a publisher, because that's the dichotomy that often happens here. Because very often when you have these kinds of situations, you have three camps of people. Dear Lord, this is going to be a good video today. You have three camps of people. You have the camp of people that are like, hey, we love you, we appreciate you, we support you, we get the world is in chaos, here's the extra $20, enjoy. That is camp one. I'm not saying that camp is right or wrong, that camp leads with their heart, I'll say. For better or for worse, they may be giving grace where grace shouldn't be given, but that camp of people is leading with their heart, they're leading with understanding, and they're leading with the nature of the fact that the world has changed. Could there be bad actors on the side of on the page taking advantage of that? Of course there could, but that camp leads with their heart. Then there's the camp of people that lead with the frustration, the anger, the straight up, how dare you, how could you can't charge me more for this. They're not engaging in logic, they're not engaging in anything other than the emotion and the frustration at the situation. And again, not said with judgment or right or wrong, just observance. And so to that end, that camp people don't really care about the details or the facts or the reality, they just care about the fact that you told me X and now it's Y, how dare you. And that camp people is generally just in the camp of outrage. I guess there's a fourth camp, which is just indifference and not really acknowledging what's going on and dealing with the situation to whatever degree that they need. But then the camp I find the most interesting, and this is the camp where these kinds of conversations actually happen too, because honestly the camp that leads with the heart are already on board. The camp that leads with outrage and frustration are not going to hear anything I'm saying as anything other than a defense of Elf-Creek, which hopefully if you paid attention, it's certainly not that. But then the camp in the middle, the camp that I'm talking to, is the interesting camp, because that camp of people are the camp of people who they acknowledge the state of the world has changed. They acknowledge that. They are on board with the fact that many companies have done this. Many companies have asked for more shipping funds. Many other companies haven't and have sucked up those costs. One thing we do not give enough credit for, we do not give enough credit to the companies that haven't asked for a cent more. Whether you like those companies, whether you don't like those companies, the Arcane Wonders, the Steamforged Games, the Awakened Realms, there are so many more that I can sit down and name that have delivered campaign after campaign after campaign and have not asked for a cent more, and they've sucked up those costs themselves. They should get credit. They should get, but the problem is they can't pat themselves on the back saying, hey, by the way, we didn't ask for more funds, by the way. And they do it subtly. If you go to an Awakened Realms campaign, they'll be like, hey, we delivered everything and never asked for more money. Like, it's a little line. They can't brag about it because it's not brag worthy. For them, it's not. For me, I will brag about the companies that have never asked for more money. Side tangent. It's going to be a video. Back to that camp in the middle. The camp in the middle of people who are hearing and understanding the nature of the world has changed. They are both frustrated with the situation, but they acknowledge the reality of the world and the way things have changed over the course of a pandemic that no one could predict or plan for. And so that camp of people often latches onto side things where they can still express their anger while acknowledging the situation has changed. They know that shipping has changed. They know that the state of the world has changed. They know that no one could have planned around that. But in that case, they want to latch onto the things that still could make it someone else's fault. Because if it's someone else's fault, then I shouldn't pay. So the state of the world changing, that's not your fault. We get that, Elf-Creek. But the fact that you had this campaign for 2.5 years, now it's your fault. The fact that you communicated this update to me now when possibly you knew this 3 months ago, now it's your fault. They pick on things that weren't and aren't frustrating in their own right, in my opinion. This is the back and forth of conversation that's unfortunately more of a monologue, but they pick on things that aren't necessarily frustrating in their own right. There are many campaigns that are 2.5 years late, and they're minorly frustrating. It just becomes so much more frustrating when it's paired with an increase in money, but you focus on the thing that you feel you can blame them for because it gives you that sense of, well, they're still wrong and they're still the problem. And again, I'm not saying they aren't. I'm not saying things were managed well. I'm not saying things weren't managed well. I'm not in the boardroom of, it's not even a boardroom, it's probably some random office. I'm not in the conversations. I can say that running businesses are hard and people screw up. I've run businesses, I've screwed up. It is hard to do things the way you and I all acknowledge is the way things should be done, is very often not an easy way to do things. Life is complicated, life is hard, life is messy. I think Elf-Creek is certainly doing a good job at communicating. Could it be better? Sure, everything could be better. I think they're doing a good job of communicating. I think they've asked for more money. I think the state of the world has changed. I personally choose to give them grace in this conversation, and I'm a backer from these campaigns. And if you are someone who chooses not to give them grace, I understand that as well. I don't think it's crazy. I think life is complicated. Life is nuanced. And with that, let's move to the next conversation. Let's see if we can turn this into a 5-minute conversation. Ivy Studios is hiring. I'll have some links down below, but Ivy Studios is doing some hiring. If you're interested in a job at a board game company, it does require, I believe it requires relocation to Nashville or location in Nashville, but I'll include links to it below. I believe they recently split it out into 2 jobs. So if you want like one of 2 different jobs, they are hiring. And also, Ivy Studios, Ivy Games, awesome company. I rephrase, let me take a step back. We're going to turn this into a conversation. Ivy Studios are awesome people who I really enjoy their company. I really enjoy their company. I love some of their games. I like some of their games, and I'm okay with the existence of some of their games. But what is different is, I will say, just from personal experience, and not Gamefound, because I know people are going to be like, oh, Gamefound. No, from like past jobs, I know the difference between thinking incredibly well of someone as a friend and working for them, and they could be different experiences. I know people who I think the world of, and I know people who work for them who are like, they're terrible bosses. One job I had once was somebody who I had a great relationship with was a terrible boss. And so those things can be at place. And this is not a conversation where I'm like, Ivy Studios is a terrible boss, not in the slightest. From what I understand, the people who work there seem to stay there, so it seems to be working out fine. Just acknowledging the fact that when I recommend them, I'll recommend them as good people who I like personally, and if your life is a living hell, it's not my fault. Sorry, Austin. Anyways, last topic of the week is going to be from YouTube, from Jamey Stegmaier, more specifically. Jamey Stegmaier put out a blog post. If you are not a fan already, I highly recommend watching subscribing, well, watching Jamey Stegmaier and subscribing to his videos. I highly, highly recommend it. And there were 2 interesting things this week from Jamey Stegmaier. I've talked about his blog for years. I followed his blog well before I was in the content creation space. I have always found his work to be incredibly insightful, and I like the way he thinks, and this is selfishly speaking because it's often the way I think, and I like that. I resonate with it. And so I like Jamey Stegmaier's blog and articles and videos and all that stuff, and there are 2 things that came out this week. One is he did a video along with some of the One Stop Co-op Shop crew and some other people talking about the nature of sponsored content. I think it was with Chip Theory Games, with who does parks? Keymaster Games, Jason Perez, and then Jamey Stegmaier. Was it only those 4? It may have only been those 4. I could be wrong. It may have been another one. But either way, it was a conversation with these various people, and it was talking about the nature of when and where they, as the company side, as the content creator side, how they engage with content creators from a term of engagement, and whether they pay and how they pay and what they pay for. Just given everything been going on the past few weeks, it's always a good conversation to understand what goes on behind the scenes to a degree, to understand different companies' approaches. And I think there were different companies' approaches in that video, and I think they are very interesting to watch, just in case you want more insight to that back-end conversation. Separately, Jamey Stegmaier put out a blog post that was talking about the nature of the YouTube face. And if you've seen these before, I've done one of these one time. I'll tell you what to search for in a second. But the YouTube face is that thumbnail that has like a cutout, like expressed emotion, like you're like, oh, like whatever it is, that extra emotion, like I can't believe, like some degree of something, like you're excited, you're frustrated, you're angry. It's the YouTube face. I have this game propped up behind some One Sharp Joe coasters over here. You see, I use them for more than just component trays. They are also sponsors of my videos, so take that into account as I unintentionally talk about them. But anyways, the YouTube face, and if you want to find the video where I did it, search, oh my gosh, I think it's Come On, Why All the Outrage, I think. One of many times in my life I have sat there and addressed the company side of the conversation, not to defend the companies, but to understand why things happen and to try to provide perspective. It is a video that might tick you off depending on who you are. You might think like, wow, Alex has been, although I will say it's actually tangent. Let me finish this conversation. Anyway, in that video I put on a YouTube face of like just expressed outrage. I think it's the only time I've done it. But Jamey talked about the nature of the YouTube face and the nature of genuine content and engagement with the audience and how that dynamic kind of works and how you embrace it. And so the presentation he kind of discusses the idea that the YouTube face is effective at driving emotion to the thumbnail in a way that pulls in the viewer perhaps a bit more. The problem is if the YouTube face does not match the nature of the content, if it's like over the top, and if it's not genuine, if it's not really true to who you are, the question is, you as a content creator, yes, you might get more views, but what is your driving force as far as how you relate to the viewer? And in my case, and in Jamey's case, and I'm sure many, many, many others' case, the answer is it feels disingenuine. And so we don't engage with it. I tried it once. It was, like, I understood why I did it, and it kind of matched the nature of the video, but, like, it still felt disingenuous. I want whatever I present to reflect the content that I'm putting out. There have been once or twice where I've leaned into, I think there's one particular video I did about clickbait that, it was a clickbait video. It was like, why Tom Vassell is wrong. And I was talking about a TV show. He didn't like the Loki TV show. I like the Loki TV show. So I put that in a video. And so those kinds of conversations I did. And by the way, I've unlisted that video because I felt bad about it later. I was like, you know what? It's not the best spirit of what I should be doing. And so the video, the blog post talked about the nature of genuine content, of how you relate to your audience, what you get out of things. Is it worth more views if what you're doing is compromising your content to get more views? Like, you want your content to get to as many people as possible. I want 100,000 people to watch this video. Why? Because I often think that the things I'm saying are things that I believe in, and if I believe in that, if I want 5 people to watch that video, why wouldn't I want 50 people to watch the video? Why wouldn't I want 100? If I want a single person to watch the video, I should theoretically want them all. Theoretically. I was assuming they get value from the video. But the problem is, if I get more views by compromising the nature of the content I put out, then at that point I have achieved more views, but I'm less proud of what I'm doing. And to me, that preference is focused on I want to be proud of what I'm doing. There are videos that I think of as better or worse than others, and the videos I think of as the better videos are the ones I want most people to engage with. And the videos which I resort to, which that doesn't happen often, but the few videos where I've resorted to some degree of clickbait or manipulation to try to in some way not engage in the content in the way I ideally want to, are the ones where I'm less proud and less people should watch. And so there's that weird compromise there. I'm going on too long about it, but it's an interesting blog post. That tangent about the Marvel thing, the Marvel outrage video, the tangent I almost went down but decided to finish my train of thought, was I got a comment at one point, recently actually, after the whole recent drama situation, I got a comment from somebody saying like, oh, I've always defended companies, and I defend like CMON because like they work with me and they talk to me, and that's why I defend companies. And I was like, I put out a video defending CMON before they ever knew I existed. Before I ever got a single review copy from CMON. And by the way, nearly every single big box Kickstarter you ever see me unbox from CMON is something I paid for myself. They have sent me review copies. They're usually the smaller box games or whatnot for, like, you know, their retail stuff. Their Kickstarters, I back them. If you follow me on Kickstarter, if you follow my page, you'll see me backing their games all the time. But past that, even back then, before they ever talked to me, knew who I was, in any way acknowledged my existence, I defended not their actions, but I provided perspective on their decisions from an outside view. That's just context there and all that, and that's the week in review. I mean, we have the whole rest of the video to get into, but that's the whole news topic. That was like 4 news pieces. I stretched that out, but I thought it was a good conversation, and so I'm okay with it. And now we're going to talk about the topic of the week. The topic of the week is Origins Game Show is coming. Origins Game Show, if you are someone who is, well, going to Origins. If you're someone who's not going to Origins, Origins is currently June 20th, June 21st, something like that, all the way through. It's basically Wednesday through Sunday of this coming week. So whatever the exact dates there are, I think June 20th to 24th or something along those lines. Origins Game Show takes place in Columbus, which is in the United States, and it's one of my personal favorite game show, board game conventions, because I keep calling it Origins Game Show. Board game convention is one of my favorite board game conventions because it is, well, in my backyard. It's 3 hours away from me. It's the one that I'll bring my kids to on Sunday and have a good time. Like, the first few days I'm there for myself, like, you know, doing all the work stuff, which is also the fun stuff, let's be honest. But then from there, I bring my kids there the last day, wander around with them. We get some, like, you know, foam swords for them to play with, or whatever kinds of things they want. I want them to have a good time, to enjoy their time at these conventions, and to hopefully not lose them. We use Apple AirTags, and we put them on the Apple AirTag, so if you see a Radcliffe kid, and you want to kidnap him, make sure you find the Apple AirTag and remove it first. I don't know why I give, like, people tips on how to kidnap my kids. I really don't know what's wrong with me. It's okay. Now I'll just put 2 Apple AirTags, so when you find the first one, you'll think you're safe. Well, now I'll do 3. Well, 4. 5. You can see where this is going. Anyways, but past that, Origins Game Show. I'm going to be there this time in 2 capacities. The usual capacity of Board Game Co. and wandering around, engaging in meetings, having a good time while also networking, which is, again, one of the things I love about board game conventions is, to me, I get to double up on networking and good time at the same conversation. But I'll also be there in the capacity of Gamefound. Gamefound will be running a booth over there. There's going to be a large booth. I did a video earlier this week. We're going to have 21 games or so set up to table and play to see. Yes, it's definitely focused on promoting Gamefound, obviously, but hopefully you can have a good time at the same time, and also find things that may or may not capture your interest, back responsibly, and all those things. We will be giving away a copy of The Witcher Old World. I should have put that in my thumbnail. Why did I not do that? Earlier this week, this goes back to the nature of content. This week, I did a video about the Origins Game Show, and we're giving away the copy of The Witcher Old World to one lucky winner who's going to be there and show up at the booth or something. We'll do the terms and all that stuff later. But I didn't put that in my thumbnail. I didn't put that in my title. In no way did I illustrate to people who want to watch the video, win a copy of The Witcher Old World. It was a side focus, but it is relevant. Anyways, past that, as far as other things going on, I highly recommend Origins Game Show. If you haven't been considering going, I think it is worth considering going. It is it's possibly, I think Gen Con is one of my favorites. Honestly, I have a lot of favorites, but Gen Con and Origins and Dice Tower West and Gamma, those are probably my 4 favorite conventions to go to, from a variety that I do go to, but Origins is a lot of fun. There are a lot of things that are worth noting, though. A lot of things, I've covered these in the past videos. I'm just going to do some basic tips if you haven't heard them before. 1, be very mindful of what you buy. At the end of the day, going to a board game convention is fun. The question is, why are you going to that convention? Figure out what that is. To me, it's about the people. It's about the fun. It's about the relationships. I enjoy that. And every convention builds on the last. You get successfully more relationships as you go through them. You go to one convention and you kind of meet a few people. You go to the next convention, you're like, hey, Bob, I just, like, it's been so long. And you build those relationships. Every convention I've gone to, I know more people than the last one because they become my convention friends that I get to know and get used to seeing them. So that's one of the reasons I go. Obviously, for me, there's a business aspect that is less present for many, but not all of you. As far as playing games, it's a great opportunity to play games and just try out new things. As far as buying games, it's usually the most expensive way to buy a game, which means if you're willing to pay that premium price to get it now and to whatever, by all means. But there have been times, and I say this with love and respect for AEG, I do love and respect AEG, I talk about a lot of their games, but I've been to conventions where I'm like, I can literally buy your game here and then figure out how to get it home, or I could just go on Amazon and pay $7 less. Like right now. Sometimes you don't even have that option. Sometimes you're talking about games that they are hard to get the hands on, and they're new, and so you might have to wait to be able to get that cheaper price. Other times, you will literally be paying more for the game right now than buying it on Amazon, and it'll show up at your door when you get home. Now, I will acknowledge, it's fun to walk out of a convention hall with like a stack of board games that you got. It is fun to do so. Am I willing to pay $7 more for the sake of carrying the game home? Honestly, I wouldn't judge you if you were. I'm not personally willing to do that, but I understand the appeal. And if you want to, go for it. Are you supporting the company? 100% you are. They walk away with $7 more in their pocket compared to whatever discount they have to do to get it on Amazon. Of course you're supporting the company. Just understand why you do things, what your motivations are, and act in accordance with your motivations, and don't act in accordance with your FOMO. Just act with intent. I'm a big fan of acting with intent. There's a lot of fun things to do. There's going to be booths to wander up. There's going to be things to see, but it's also easy to lose track of things because you're so focused on seeing everything. I would say make sure you enjoy yourself. If you want to wander up and down the hall, I'd say day 1 or day 2, pick a day where you want to wander the hall, and the other days act with a degree of intent. Figure out, I want to play these games. I want to go to these specific booths. I want to hang out with these friends. Go to that restaurant. Figure out the things you are trying to get out of Origins, or any convention for that matter, and engage with that to whatever degree, so it's easy to spend a few days there and then feel like you were just running around the whole time not doing anything because you're so focused on the FOMO of chasing the next thing that you didn't actually enjoy what was in front of you at the time. We're still talking about board game conventions, not your game collection, but the same logic applies, the same concept applies as you go through it. Also, I recommend walking around with a water bottle and stay hydrated and all that stuff. Again, it is easy to deal with the fact that you're like, hey, I'm at a convention, and you don't think about the fact that you might benefit from having a water bottle in your backpack that you can wander around. As far as I know, you're able to bring those things with you. Also, it's also worth noting, this is a maskless masks not required convention, so they're not, they want you to conform with all standard degrees of responsibility, but if you are someone who is mindful of that, if you're not interested in going to a convention that does not require masks, Origins for the first time in several years is not going to require masks, and I do not believe they're requiring proof of vaccination either. Hopefully people going there are vaccinated and are being responsible, and obviously if you are sick and showing symptoms, please be, it's easy to sit there and say, hey, it's just a cold. It's easy to do that. I know the temptation. I understand the temptation. If you are someone who is sick, it is irresponsible to go into a public area and spread that to who knows how many people. Gamma is a convention I went to recently that did not have masks required, and a lot of people came home and tested positive for COVID. I came home and tested positive for COVID. Now, was it the end of the world? No. For me, it was a small cold. It was not a big deal. It was like a day or two of being a little more under, and then it is a very, very easy to get through. No major impact. And that's me. Other people will have a much worse case. A lot of people will be fine. It's one of those things where even if it is a cold, just like spreading sickness to people is not the best. So try to be responsible. I know it's hard, especially if you have plans. If you like come down with a sniffle and you're like, well, I'm supposed to go to Origins, I understand it's hard. At the very least, if you're in that situation, at the very least, even if you're going to choose to continue to go, mask up in that case, at the very least, because yeah, just take some degree of personal responsibility for your actions as you go through things. It's just the nicest thing to do for others. And that's basically Origins. Buy less things, or do what you want, but be aware of the price points. Try to find things to do. Make sure you have water and stay hydrated. And understand that you can have an absolutely great time if you go to any convention. And I particularly, speaking of masks and sneezing and all that, it's not a cold, it's just a sneeze. You're like, yeah, right, Alex. Anyways, that is going to be the topic of the week, which brings us to the games I played. The games I played this past week, as usual, this is a small smattering of the games I played, focusing on a few that I want to talk about for one reason or another, and the first one is going to be S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the board game from Awakened Realms. I really enjoyed S.T.A.L.K.E.R, and I was not expecting to. I actually have a full first impressions up on the channel, you can check that out. Also worth correcting that in my first impressions I talked about I feel the game is too short with an 8 to 12 hour campaign. I pinned an update, but effectively the game is not too short because it has 3 8 to 12 hour campaigns. So it's I saw the length of the campaign, I missed the number of campaigns. But past that, I really enjoyed the game. I thought it had the Awakened Realms feel and narrative. Someone compared it to This War of Mine, and I think narratively speaking, that's true. Narratively speaking, I got the same sense and the same investment and involvement. I thought it did a great job, which makes sense. This is Awakened Realms. This is what they're good. This is one of the things that they're good at. But then additionally, mechanically speaking, it was different and rewarding. And that's a key thing. It felt different from other games I played and had different mechanics in play, but it didn't feel like they were forced in and jammed in for the sake of being different. It felt like they wanted to be different and did a good job being different. I overall really enjoyed my 2 plays. I just had 2 scenarios to go through, so 2.5 plays because I reset the first time. But overall, I really enjoyed diving into S.T.A.L.K.E.R. I am looking forward to comes next with it. It obviously does fall in the category, even as an 8 to 12 hour campaign, or 10, 12 hours, whatever it is, it still does have that aspect of, does it hold up? Is my opinion still strong 8 hours into it, 10 hours into it, a campaign into it? How does my opinion hold up past the first 2 gameplays? That is the interesting question. I will say as well, they had I think they listed the campaigns as being 3 to 4 hour experiences per mission or something, per mission or something. I don't know, I have to double check exactly what the campaign page said. I am glad that there's more campaigns. I'm not confident of the length. If the missions I had are supposed to be 3 to 4 hours, they weren't. So, I don't know exactly. I don't know. We'll see. I will wait and see and all that as far as the game length and replayability and all those things. But ultimately, I very much enjoyed S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the board game, and definitely recommend it, especially if you like games like Burn Cycle, like V Commandos, or like Assassin's Creed, or like Flashpoint Crisis Protocol, I think it's the name. Any of those games, they all have good systems that have same similarities as far as a stealth, but also combat engagement, and they all do it very differently in ways that I found very rewarding in complete different ways. I want to own all 4 of those games. Well, not V Commandos and Assassin's Creed. Those 2 are too similar. Assassin's Creed, Burn Cycle, Flashpoint Crisis Protocol, and S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the board game. And then from there we have chess. Yes, I played chess this week. 3 times. And I got beaten by a 7-year-old girl. She's probably an 11-year-old girl, because she's my daughter's friend. My daughter's 11. Anyways, yeah, that happened. So chess. I played chess. My daughter played a game of chess, and I played her at chess, and then I proceeded to play her friend, who she stomped me in 5 moves. I then won. I then stomped her. Okay, I still won the second game, but they are 11-year-olds. Take that with a grain of salt. But chess is a great game. I enjoy chess. It's very tactical. It's very strategic. It's never the game I'm going to ask to pull out. But if you sit me down in front of a chess set, I will play it with you, and I will have a good time. It holds up. It's one of those games that kind of has stood the test of time, so to speak, and I like chess. I think it's great, and I just haven't played it in a long time, which is why I want to say I played chess this week, and yay. Then Castle Burgundy. Castle Burgundy. I have, of course, played Castle Burgundy several times from the new big box deluxe version of all that. I will have a video going up this coming week about is it worth it? Talking about my experience with the game, talking about the aspect of putting tiles on and off, the various, everything I've had to deal with the game. I will have a video up about the Castle Burgundy this coming week, talking about whether the experience is worth it from the standpoint of, well, for me, I'll save you some time. For me, it's 100% worth it because I'm a huge fan of a Castle Burgundy. But I think there are complaints. I have complaints about the system. I have things I wish were better. I have small nitpicks, larger nitpicks, things that might be nitpicks for you but not for me. It's just a video going into, is Castle Burgundy worth it? If you are someone who, well, anyway, depending on who you are. If you're a Castle Burgundy's fan, if you're a Castle Burgundy newcomer, whoever you are, I've enjoyed playing Castle Burgundy, the special edition version of the game, and whether or not it's a game for you is an entirely different conversation because it's going to run you between $120 to like $300 to get your hands on a copy, depending on how much bling you got in with that copy. And that is the games I played this past week, which means also playing the Castle Burgundy with like miniatures left, right, and center. Worth it is a different conversation, but it is nice. Moving on to the videos of the week, starting off with this past Saturday. This past Saturday, I reviewed District Noir. I gave it a 4 to 5. I really like District Noir. It falls very heavily into those 2-player card games where there's a tight back and full. Those games, inevitably, I go through cycles where I'll pull out Air, Land, and Sea, play it 4 or 5 times, then come back to 2 months later and play it again. Same with District Noir. It's going to fall into that cycle where I enjoy the gameplay, I enjoy the push and pull, the tug of war between players, the push your luck aspect with really push your opponent more than push your luck. Really enjoy it overall. Gave it a 4 to 5 from Pandasaurus Games. It's a reprint of an older title, Never played the old title, only played the newer one. Later on Saturday, Professor Meg did a, well, just Meg, let's go with Meg. She's Professor Meg on her channel, I think she's Meg on my channel, I'm never really sure. Meg did a preview video of Studium No Exit. Studium No Exit from Watchtower Gaming, they have their campaign. Meg did a preview video. I did get several comments talking about the red flags of the game, talking about the nature of the fact that there's no prototypes, and there were some concerns about what the creator does and doesn't know. And to that end, I want to say, I want to talk about it briefly here, but first of all, I apologize in terms of not being clear about any of those aspects. None of those things are things that I was aware of. I actually had a separate conversation with the King of Average behind the scenes, just talking about, head-to-head, just person to person, content creator to content creator, talking about what we feel our responsibility is to our audiences in terms of reviewing something to review, if that makes sense. This is something that's present with things like 6 Siege. Like, I covered 6 Siege, I promoted 6 Siege, I talked about 6 Siege. I did it because I love the game. But what's the sense of responsibility you have to your audience when you're talking about something that may have issues or flags or all of those things? And in the case of something like Studium No Exit, I think it's even more a sense of responsibility when there's a payment behind it. That was paid content for the Board Game Co channel, and so that makes more of a sense of responsibility because I can't even just use the excuse, hey, it's a passion for the hobby. No, that was a paid transaction as well. And so to that end, it's something that I'm still examining. For the context, I don't actually think that there's major red flags in Studium No Exit, but I understand the concerns that people have. There were some concerns primarily around different things, like whether certain miniatures would or wouldn't be realistic, and did he have that knowledge of those networks, all those things. It's a small team, and there was certain, like, the game exists, the game has put work into it, and I guarantee you there's no intent to scam anyone. There's so many easier ways to make money than to design a fully functional game to get an audience to pay money. There's just easier ways and easier industries to make money. Do tech. Tech is so much easier to do that, and a board game audience is not the best way to make money from scamming people. But there is a difference between scamming people and the belief and capability of whether a creator can succeed or will have issues along the way. So I do want to just talk about it briefly. I am aware of the comments. I was not aware of any of the issues. It is not the first time we have done a preview video with no physical prototypes. Sometimes that does happen, and sometimes it does make sense. I also am still wrestling myself with what degree of responsibility do I have on myself to look into a company's history to try to make sure that what I'm presenting is a safe back, so to speak. And that's something that I'm not saying, like, I'm saying I don't know the answer. I don't have a firm answer. I don't think I don't think I'm obligated to look into every single thing. And to what end? How much research do you do? But I can also guarantee you that the more time something falls apart, the more I will have a sense of, oh boy, I need to up my game here as far as things go. So I'm aware of the conversation. I think it's a fascinating conversation. I am always curious for your input on this. It's something I'm going to have to manage and navigate. I will say both things are true. I never want to ever incentivize someone to back a game that then doesn't deliver. I feel terrible when that happens. Paid or unpaid, I feel terrible when that happens. I also need to figure out from a purely logistical standpoint of what degree of research is reasonable, what is enough, and how to engage with that in a way that's functional and does the job. That was Saturday's video. Then we had Sunday. Sunday we had the S.T.A.L.K.E.R first impressions going up. Again, I enjoyed the game, really liked it. I didn't give it an official rating over there. A big part of that is because the first impressions aspect, I really need to play it more. I would say instinctively it's going to be at least a 4, probably a 4.5, but I need more time to go there. So I'm just putting it, I'm willing to say it in this video. I don't want to say it in there because, again, I work for Gamefound, and that means that Gamefound does have shared ownership with Awakened Realms, and so there is that connection point. I don't want to officially rate it. I gave all the disclaimers in the video. Ultimately, I do very much enjoy S.T.A.L.K.E.R. I think I'd be surprised if it was less than a 4, even after I dive into it fully, and I think a 4.5 is more likely, but that needs more plays for me to say. Past that, we had, later on Sunday, we had an unboxing for The Witcher Old World. Just unboxing the game. Being excited about it and also frustrated because there's so many things right now that I need to be playing that are on my agenda, and then there's Origins, and then there's Level Up Retreat. There's so many things, and I don't know when I'm playing The Witcher next. Before Gen Con. That's my goal. That's my mental goal. Maybe Level Up Retreat. I'll play The Witcher Level Up Retreat. Maybe. We'll see. Then on Monday we had 2 back, well, Monday we actually first had, I'm so used to saying we had 2 back, not to back, we first had Expeditions from Stegmaier Games. A review of Expeditions. This is actually so behind the scenes stuff again. Expeditions, I gave it a 5 out of 5. I have not given a 5 out of 5 in quite some time. Ever since I introduced 4.5s to my system, I am more likely to hand that out over a 5 out of 5, and many of the games I gave 5 out of 5s in the past to, about half of them shifted to 4.5s when I updated my reviews, because once I have that leeway, I want to be a drop more strict. I don't remember what my last 5 out of 5 was. Was 4 Northwood a 5 out of 5? I don't think so. I think it was a 4.5. I really like that game. I do like 4 Northwood a lot. I don't remember what my last 5 out of 5 is. Oh, DEI. DEI was my last 5 out of 5. Of course. I know. I love DEI. Anyways, point is that Expeditions, love the game. My 5 out of 5s right now are probably like 6 or 7 a year. Maybe. Somewhere in that range. Maybe even less. I have to check it up. I love Expeditions. Expeditions is a game that has been played like 7 or 8 times by myself, by my group, over the past like 2 weeks I've had it. It's a game that we just sat there, my group and I, we sat there and played Alma Mater the other night. And after playing Alma Mater, which was like a 4-hour long game that we did enjoy, we were all like, we could have played Expeditions twice in this time. Like, our group is really enjoying it. And I've played it with several groups of people. I played it at Gamma for the first time. I've played it with multiple groups of friends at this point. I have not yet played it solo. I've been meaning to play it solo. I have not gotten to do it yet. I really enjoy Expeditions. I also got a comment in the video this past week that was... I don't want to get... I got a comment in the video that was referencing the previous drama, and it was basically like, how much does Stegmaier Games... referencing the recent drama in the board game space, and the comment was like, how much does Stegmaier Games pay you for this 5 out of 5, you know? I still don't trust you after like all your associations with other people in the board game space. And I just blocked and moved on. If you don't trust me, I am always happy to have a conversation. If you in any way question anything I do, I am always happy to have a conversation, but it has to be respectful. It has to be respectful, and just the degree of like, and also my favorite part of the comment was like, sorry, I still don't trust you, and like, what are you, you're apologizing while insulting me at the same time. And also, a side point, Jamey Stegmaier doesn't pay anyone anything. I don't think he's ever, oh no, he's done a paid playthrough content. I know he's done paid playthroughs, and he does how to plays with Rodney, but he does not pay reviewers in the slightest ever, or preview. He doesn't really do preview and all that stuff. Anyways, Expeditions, great game. Later on Monday, we had 2 Back Not to Back, going through the California campaigns. Over on Patreon, we had Unfair and Unbalanced, where we talk about those same campaigns and trying to convince you not to back them. On Tuesday, we had Phantom Epoch First Impressions. This is basically, and I like saying, I got a comment, I like saying Phantom Epoch, but it is potentially pronounced Phantom Epic. Depends on where you're from, Epoch or Epic. And someone commented, why would you pronounce it Epic? We already have a word for that. Pronounce it Epoch. And I'm like, I agree with you. It sounds so much more cool. It sounds cooler. Has more gravitas. The Phantom Epic. The Phantom Epoch. It just has gravitas. Also, there's no the. Phantom Epoch. I give it first impression to that one. I enjoyed it. The art style doesn't pull me in. I like the gameplay a lot. The art style is not as much for me, and it is a little adjacent to games like Gloomhaven or these big box campaign games. To me, that's one I definitely enjoy, definitely like. Is it the kind of game I want to give 40 hours to? I don't know yet. I have to see where the game goes, and there are aspects of the game that aren't yet unlocked fully. I actually got some aspects, so I got the designer sent me some of these things to show me the class trees and how they unlock, but I haven't got to experience them. But Phantom Epoch, definitely enjoyed that one. Later on Tuesday, we had a review for Solar Titans. Give it a 3.5 out of 5. It has some strong 2-player head-to-head deck building. There are multiple player modes to it if you want to play free-for-all or one versus many. There's a bunch of modes for it. Ultimately, I played it as a 2-player head-to-head deck building experience in which you are building out your ship while trying to take down your opponents. I enjoyed it, had some critiques, but overall enjoyed it, a 3.5 out of 5. I did see some comments in my video talking about AI art. If it had AI art, I don't know about that. I'll also say, do we want to go down this rabbit hole? I have not firmly made up my mind on AI art. The camp I'm currently in is I understand the arguments in both camps. I'm always happy to engage in a conversation, but the camp I currently fall in is, because it is a divisive topic, I am in the camp of, if I know something has AI art, I would likely say so in the video, not with judgment, but with awareness, because I know it's divisive. Myself personally, I'm much more on the fence about it, but that's a conversation for another day. And on the fence does not mean I'm for it, does not mean I'm against it. It means I understand the conversations at play, and I think I'd want to have a conversation with somebody who is strongly against it to educate myself more while going into the pros and cons. And that's not an invitation for all the millions of YouTube comments. I'm not going to heavily dive into AI art in the comments right now. That is a conversation I'm sure we'll have one day. Too many things happening right now. I don't have time for all the comments at the moment. Then lastly on Tuesday, we had a review for French Quarter from Motor City Games. Another roll-in-my game from them. Really enjoy their games, and yeah, I enjoyed French Quarter as well. It feels different yet similar to their other game systems, and I gave it a 4 out of 5, the exact same rating I've given to all their other games. Then Wednesday we had a preview for Exoland, done by Devin. I don't know much about this game. It looks cool. There's like things sliding off. It looks cool. In fact, I actually asked him to send me it because I asked him if he wanted to keep it. He's like, no, I don't need it. And I was like, okay, can you send it to me, because I think my kids might enjoy that, and so I'll let you know later, I guess, if I like it. But Exoland, which should be a upcoming, I think it's an upcoming Kickstarter if not mistaken, but Devin did preview content for Exoland. Then later on Wednesday we had the weekly live with Devin, myself, and special guest Jenna Rose from the Board Game Garden, talking about, of course, the usual weekly game show, the games we want to talk about, and then as well as that, the topic of the week was what are games we pushed off playing and then kind of felt we shouldn't have pushed them off for so long. And that's a fun video. You can check that out as well. Lastly, on Wednesday, we had a Castle of Burgundy unboxing. Just unboxing the Castle of Burgundy with all the goodies and all that stuff, because I wanted to unbox it as fast as I possibly could and get it up so I can sit there and play the game. I played it last week. I unboxed it like several days earlier, so I got to play it already multiple times, and I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. Then Thursday we had the Gamefound at Origins video talking about the 21 games that are going to be set up at the Gamefound booth at Origins. A ton of fun games to play through and to go through, and as I mentioned, a chance to win the Witcher Old World. You will have to be there. It's not a YouTube comment thing. It's a you have to be there thing, which I guess is a good thing I didn't put in the video, because if I put in the video like, hey, win the Witcher Old World, people would click on the video expecting to win it, and you can only win it if you go to Origins. So I guess it's a good thing. Let's leave the title alone. Let's not update anything. Let's just leave it all as. And then on Friday we had games leaving the collection for, what month is it? May. Games leaving the collection for May, I guess. That's what we're up to. Games leaving the collection for the month of May. I mean, we're in June, but the games that are leaving in May are always filmed at Feud. Maybe I should just do it by the month I'm in as opposed to the month it's for. I don't know. But games leaving the collection, a bunch of games leaving the collection. There'll be a bunch more leaving next month. I have been purging a lot and being much more selective about what I keep because I don't have space or time. I do have interest, but I don't have space or time because of all the other things I'm trying to play. But I still keep things. Like, what's the most recent thing I kept? Well, Expeditions, Cosmo Octopus, The Witcher Old World. Never mind, I'm keeping games still. I'm still keeping games. It's all good. There are some games that go away and some games that stay. It's not always there's a lot. I just play a lot of games. I play a lot of games. Which brings us to today. Today we have a few things. We have a conversation with Professor Meg about Gloomhaven. Now I called it Professor Meg, even though it's on the channel, so it's just wildly inconsistent. But a conversation around Gloomhaven 2nd Edition with Meg. We had a little conversation around Gloomhaven 2nd Edition, all the fun things, and that's basically that. And then later today we're also going to have a review for Witchstone. Probably. There may be a different video instead, but I'm going to say probably for the Witchstone review. Which brings us to next week. Next week, as far as what's coming up next week? We have a video, Is Castle Burgundy Worth It? Like I mentioned already. I also will hopefully have footage from the Origins game show floor. Generally, when I go to conventions, I try to get a video of the convention hall area the day before it gets crowded and noisy and all those things. So I can be like, hey, for you, when you show up tomorrow, basically Thursday morning, I hope to have a video up here's the Gamefound Origins floor, here's the booths you should be checking out and that I think are really cool and you should check out. Is it a biased selection based on my own personal interest? Yes. Yes, it is. But I mean, I'm not going to show you the trading card games or the VR booth because that's not my jam, and hopefully you're watching my channel because you share some degree of overlap in what I care about. So yeah, it'll be a biased selection of the games that I am interested in personally because I'm very excited about those games, and it's going to be showing you the booths like, hey, check out this booth and those games and this and that and this, and it's going to be just walking the show hall floor. I don't guarantee that I have this up. Ultimately, I need to film this on the road and edit on my laptop, which is a whole different conversation than what I usually like doing, but I think they're useful videos, and especially if you're at Origins and if you're waiting in the this is one of those times as well where the video is probably going to go up at 8 a.m. on Thursday because if the hall opens at 10, if you're at Origins, you want something to do and look at before you walk into the hall. So that will hopefully be Thursday's video going up at 8 a.m. instead of the usual 10 a.m. As far as the games on the table, a few games on the table, some of them in weird boxes. We have a Bloody Business, Scarface 920, the expansion. I should have video coverage of this one going up shortly. I need to dive into it again before, well, giving a coverage of the expansion. I have Cyclades over here, this is the Cyclades 2nd Edition prototype. It doesn't have all the things I want, but it has the rules and the game and the stuff. There's miniatures it doesn't have yet, so it's a partial prototype, not a finished copy, but I'm excited to play it because I love Cyclades. One of my top 20 games of all time, been that way for a long time. We have Sagrada Artisans, which I hope to be playing shortly. That's the one that I'm very excited to dive into. And then we have Railway Rush, a game I actually said no to because it actually looked pretty good, but I say no to a lot of games. There's so many games, I don't have time to say yes to all. I say no to most of them. And the guy responded back saying, well, that's a shame because I have a Board Game Co. exclusive promo for you. And so I said, fine, I'll play the game, but you have to take this out of the final copy of the game. Nothing against Board Game Co. promos or whatnot, but realistically speaking, I just find that I am fine being a promo in a game when I am subtle and baked into the game in a way that you might not even know I exist. I am a promo in a few things. I'm a promo in Vindication, by the way. Fun fact, I'll actually be selling some Vindication promos at some point. Probably a good time to do that. I'm not going to do that in this video. I'll do it in some other video. But I'm a promo in Vindication. I have a presence in Chronicles of Dunagar. There are some games that I am in and you may not know I'm in, and that's the way I like it. If you can ever tell that I'm in a game, I feel it breaks immersion, and I'm not into those promos myself, so I don't want to be that promo for others. I want to be in games that I like ideally, and games that you don't know I'm there. You have to be like, is that Alex from Board Game Cow? And I'm like, yeah, it is, but you didn't even notice. Fun fact, if you have Viticulture Tuscany, the expansion there's a character in there, I think the wine critic, who looks like me. That game was put out before I was ever in the YouTube space, so unless Jamey Stegmaier was a fan of me long before I ever put out a video, I'm guessing it's not me. But it looks like me, and so that's the kind of thing, honestly, it kind of looks like one of those bad art versions of me where it's like, oh, geez, someone could not put Board Game Co. into the stupid game. It kind of looks like that, honestly. So that's the kind of promo I don't want to be. Anyways, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you as always. If you are at Origins, I forgot this part. If you are at Origins, if you see me at Origins, say hi. Like, not that me phrase. You don't have to say hi, not by any means. But if in any way, if you watch my content, if you want to in any way reach out, please say hi. On a personal level, I know how hard it is to see someone who you kind of want to have a conversation with, but be like, I don't want to interrupt and this and that. I've done it. I've done it with like dozens of people in the board game space where I don't want to do that. So I'm saying, if in any way you want to talk to me, stop me by all means. There are sometimes I might be in a rush on the way to a meeting. That can happen, in which case I apologize. If I ever brushed you off in any way, I hopefully will do it kindly, and it's probably because I'm late to a meeting. That does happen. But other times I'll happily stop, happily take a photo, happily talk. I like the space I'm in. I like it a lot. Also, I'll be at the Gamefound booth the whole time, so if you're looking to, not the whole time, a decent amount of time, so if you do want to see me and you haven't found me, I will probably be there. In any case, until next time, I hope you have a good week, and as always, I hope you have a good one.